You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.
We told you that the folks at CBS, they have put on administrative leave two of their executives who were accused of using racist, sexist, and homophobic comments. One of the issues they've also had to deal with is employees saying that they were being unfairly paid for their work as well. This has been an issue, and a lawsuit was actually filed on this very point. And in fact, remember we had a former CBS employee last week who was on, who talked about Don Champion. His whole livelihood was based on whether or not he would, of course, get assignments when he was a freelancer. And so what's interesting about this is that a former freelancer is suing, of course, CBS. And the station is based in Fort Lauderdale, WFOR Channel 4. She claims the station engaged in wage discrimination as well as gender discrimination. Okay, so let's talk about this right now with Silva Harapetian, also Peter Hoogerwoerd, who is her attorney as well. Folks, how you doing?
Great, Roland.
All right, let's Sylvia. So lay out for us first the basis of your lawsuit, because we've heard others. Again, Don Champion talked about, again, the executives, if they didn't like him, that determined whether or not he got money, whether he would get assignments. And we've heard others. I'm the vice president digital for the National Association of Black Journalists. We've heard others talk about how the use of freelancers was keeping folks from being able to earn a living, and some people were freelancing for more than a decade.
Yeah, it's a problem that you don't realize is so widespread because you're so, as a journalist, focused on doing your job and making sure that you do it so well so that you get called back. So this idea of creating instability in your life and put you in a survival mode so that you don't necessarily question what's going on around you. I worked at CBS Miami for 7 years. I was praised and promoted only by title. And in those 7 years, job openings came and went, and I was never offered a full-time position. Other people were hired. And when I asked about it, I was told the position isn't available to you. And when I was asked about a raise potentially on my day rate, I was told that the money isn't available to you. And this went on for 7 years. And you don't think to ask because, well, this is what we want to do. And we do it because this is what we love. This is our dream. But 7 years is a long time. And when I think back, there were so many people that were working as freelancers, writers, producers, assignment desk editors, all of us for more than 3 years at a time, some people for a decade. And to be honest with you, I am nervous being here, even though I took legal action and my attorney's joining on this call. It's scary because the way CBS has managed from the top down, it trickles down into the local newsroom, and the message was always very clear: speak up, or put it in writing, or ask questions, go to HR or business department. The consequences are severe. The bullying and the retaliation is severe. You're either not going to be scheduled, or if you are, you're not going to get the assignments that you rightfully have worked for or deserve. I've spoken to dozens of people out of WCBS, KPIX, out of KCBS. Some people were fired and let go because they asked questions about their time cards. And the issue is that CBS blatantly and bluntly told all of us to write a flat 8 hours on our time cards, regardless of whether we worked for more than 8 or not. So when you think about it, if I'm covering a hurricane, which I did on multiple occasions, and I'm working 18 hours for 5-6 days in a row, I'm getting a flat rate of 8 hours day pay. And when that happens over and over again, the economic disparities and the difficulties are very difficult to overcome. Personally, and this is embarrassing to admit on some level, but I could no longer afford my car to make my car payment. So I had to turn my lease in, and I had to buy a scooter to get to work. I've talked to several people out of WCBS. There was a person who was getting paid $80 a day in New York, $80 a day. And how are you supposed to survive? And when you hear these stories, and I hear these stories because after the lawsuit, dozens of people have called me and have told me their stories. And you hear them over and over again, you realize you're not the only one who was passed over for a job. You're not the only one who was put in that kind of position. So I thought it was extremely important to speak up and stand up and do something about it.
Peter, share with us, what you learned, because what Silva is laying out, I mean, is shocking and stunning. And $80 in New York City, Jesus, that's $10 an hour for 8 hours. And if you're working 10, 12, 14 hours, but you're only getting paid for 8?
Well, the contention of CBS has been throughout the litigation that these independent television stations are operated with collective bargaining agreements. In Silva's case, there was no collective bargaining agreement through an organization that is SAG-AFTRA. And the SAG-AFTRA union contracts have been negotiated, but frequently there's a per diem rate, and the stations are somewhat different in how they approach their day rate. For example, the KCBS Los Angeles, their anchors are paid a day rate. In Miami, I think Silva was only paid $210 for a day for an extended period of time. And this certainly creates issues. We have advanced her lawsuit under the Fair Labor Standards Act and the Equal Pay Act, alleging violations of both of these statutes, and also Title VII for gender discrimination and age discrimination. And a lot of the people that I have spoken to who have come forward as witnesses are scared because of the retaliation that they may face, of fear of being blackballed in the industry. And so presently we have a motion pending before the court to see if we can allow, if these people would be allowed to proceed anonymously, which is a novel concept. But when you're dealing with such a big entity, the repercussions of speaking up are palpable.
That point right there, Silva, is the fear. If I sue, I'm going to be blackballed. How has this impacted your career and ability to work?
I mean, the consequences are severe. There's a cost to this. And I mean, I haven't worked in this industry since 2018. And to be honest with you,
since 2018?
2018, yeah.
Anywhere.
Anywhere. And the reality is, even when I was working at CBS, I applied for other jobs. But you know what the question is why have you been working at this station for 7 years as a freelancer? Why were you not made a full-time employee? Insinuating that there is some backstory or some other reason why I was not hired. So this perception that there must be something there, not realizing that this is just a cost-cutting measure at the expense of the people who literally show up on a daily basis and do the work of 6 people in a newsroom. You know, as an employee at CBS, I produced stories for other people to voice in front. I showed up to report on a daily basis, so 5 days a week, sometimes 6 in a row. And then I write for digital, and then I do social media, and then I write for the magazine. All of that is not an 8-hour job. And to be truthful, you know, I put my entire life into this business. I was born in the Middle East. I got to this country when I was 14 years old. I learned to speak English as a sophomore in high school. And to think that I have put everything I have had into building a career and trying to move up the ladder the right way, and to end up in a situation where I have to make a decision between the career I've built and my integrity as a journalist. Because how could I ever ask anyone in the street to risk their life, to put their livelihood on the line, to put their face on camera to tell a story when I can't even do that in my own life? So I grappled and struggled with the integrity of being a journalist, and the cost has been, sorry.
I understand. Take your time. Take your time.
Sorry. And the reality of it is, since the news broke and this has been made public, and let me just go back and say, I tried to address this with management at the local level. And because of the way this leadership with the two people that now are on administrative leave, the way they've emboldened and encouraged leadership on the local level to be, there are no consequences, right, to their actions. So this trickle down effect is real. So people are walking on eggshells. People who worked at CBS a decade ago I've talked to them in person, and I've got names and stories dating back a decade ago, and they're still afraid to come forward and tell their stories because of the fear of retaliation. And the reality is, it's not enough to hold those two people accountable. We have to address this trickle down effect on the local level, where management is able to get away with anything. You know, part of the reason I came forward and that is because I tried to address this with my manager. And then after I left in 2018, I did file a complaint during that investigation, and nothing happened. I filed an EEOC complaint, but really the last thing that happened to me was that as a reporter, I was sent on assignment and I was sexually assaulted on assignment. And when my complaints and concerns were ignored by the manager who sent me to that assignment, which was, and Roland, you can appreciate this, to go cover a story at the public parking lot of a football game at the Dolphin Stadium, where for 13 hours, people have been tailgating and drinking, and to do a live shot at 11 o'clock. And when I addressed my concerns to be put in that kind of circumstance, I was told, are you refusing to do your job? And seconds before a live shot, my ass is smacked, I'm groped and touched inappropriately. And when I complain, and again, I'm told, are you trying to say you're refusing to do your job? And sent back to the same circumstances for the second time 3 weeks later. And when I finally took it to my female news director, her response to that kind of environment was to stop complaining and to stop whining. When you have a culture, a toxic environment and toxic culture that allows for that kind of behavior and that kind of management to deal with issues on that level, then it makes you kind of wonder, what am I doing here for $210 a day without a car and working 18 hours? And to think that there are hundreds of people who've gone through this organization and have experienced exactly, well, not exactly the same thing I did, but very close. And I can't even pretend to understand what my Black and brown journalist brothers and sisters go through. You heard Don Champion's story. And when you look at the Excel spreadsheet Peter and I have, where we continue to talk to people from CBS, from all of the different stations across the country, and they repeat exactly the same stories and the same MO, the being bullied, retaliated against, if they spoke up. People have lost their jobs, people have lost their livelihoods, and 95% of those people are women above the age of 40. There are people of color, and there are people of members of the LGBTQT community. And you can't turn your face from that kind of circumstance. And if it's one person, then you have a disgruntled employee. But you have hundreds of people with the same story, you have a problem. You have a cultural problem. I'm hopeful that they have been put on administrative leave and that the powers that be are trying to change things, and this independent investigation has been launched. But I'm going to be honest with you, I've gotten calls from almost everyone on that list, and everyone is still afraid to speak to people who are leading this independent investigation. So the fear and the and impact on our careers, it runs deep, and it's important to know that our lives have changed. My life may never be the same again. For 20 years, I built a career that I was hopeful to just show up to work and to do my job. And that may never happen for me again. But how could I ever ask someone else to put their life on the line, to be a witness, or to tell their story if I'm not willing to do the same for myself?
Peter, final comment.
Well, I mean, the law is in place to protect people like Silva. We've advanced her cause in the court, and only a jury can decide who's right and who's wrong on these things. But the arguments that I think that we're advancing are trying to change the dialogue and make the people who do the hard work in the field and produce the stories, report the stories, make it so that it's a fair workplace and environment. And when the people who are asking the reporters in the field to put only 8 hours on their timesheet, when that's not factually true, I think there's a lot of implications to the local station and to the network for their employees who are being asked to not report accurately, something that's a key component for their job. So, but we'll have to let the courts decide.
Peter, we appreciate it. Silva, thank you so very much for sharing your story. Again, as one of the folks involved in NABJ, we're going to do our best to ensure that this external investigation is done properly and fairly, that people are also going to be heard out. And so, again, CBS has already announced who that's going to be. We are going to be talking with those lawyers very soon, hopefully in the next 48 hours, to make clear how we believe this investigation should be conducted, and we'll stay on top of that. So we certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Roland.
Thank you very much.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends. Go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have that you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it, please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.